While we wait seemingly forever on news of a Mario Odyssey successor, we take a look at the entire library of 3D Mario games in Nintendo's history. The ordering may shock you. It did me. My name is Jim. I will be your pal for today, and this is the Jim Pal Podcast. All right, so as always, we remind our listeners we're on TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. Our podcast is available everywhere podcasts are available, and the video version of this podcast is available on YouTube. You can also find me on Twitch 3 days a week, Sunday, Monday, and Friday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Okay, so let's establish which games are even eligible for this list. I did not include games like Paper Mario, Mario RPG, or straight 2D games. I feel like the Mario RPG and Paper Mario games were just too different. And 2D Mario and 3D Mario is wildly different in of itself in terms of gameplay that really is tough to rank them versus each other. Plus, I kind of just enjoy the 3D Mario experience more, and it's my podcast, so that's what I'm going to look at. I rank these games based on replay factor, pure enjoyment, difficulty, and appearance. Many of these factors do impact others, and I'll try to make that distinction where I can. My intention when I started was to do a top 5. However, when compiling the list, I found that Nintendo really only ever had 7 truly 3D Mario games in its history. From 1996 to 2022, we only have 7 total. So it wasn't a huge imposition for me to just make this a top 7 list and be done with it. Before I even begin the list, I want to be clear, I enjoyed each and every single game on the list, so anything negative I have to say is purely something in relation to the other games for the purposes of ranking. Alright, so number 7, Super Mario 3D Land for the Nintendo 3DS. For me, this game falls into the 2D category. I'm sure you've heard all about it. It's technically 3D, but the path from beginning of the level to the end is very linear. There are several spots where it just looks like a 2D space where an extra layer was tacked on to make it technically 3D. There's nothing exciting about the hub world, just follow the dotted line. But okay, they did borrow a lot from Galaxy as far as appearances and color palettes go, so that is probably a good idea. They also offer some classic suits reimagined, like the Super Leaf / Tanuki suit. It doesn't work exactly the same, which is a good thing, actually. So you get the nostalgia while giving yourself somewhat of a new mechanic. Don't give me what I've already gotten. Perfect. This game was okay. The graphics were average, but it took a hit being on a portable device like that. The top-down camera angle they used at times was a weird choice. Felt like Zelda, honestly, at times. And one I don't think many people enjoyed that much. The fact that the camera was fixed a lot of the time was also a takeaway. 3D to me means I can face my avatar and camera in any direction I want. Replayability, I had no real desire to play this one again. I had fun while playing it. I don't regret it, but it just didn't enjoy it enough to give it another go. Number 6, for this one, I'm taking the version that was remade, Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury for the Nintendo Switch. Technically, you could split these up and make them 2 different games and make this a top 8 list, but we'll get to that. Okay, so I know what some of you are going to say. This one is basically the same game as 3D Land. Well, it might be. The suits, the mechanics are almost identical. The 2.5D concept is back. It improves slightly, but ultimately doesn't give you much of a choice in which direction your avatar and camera face. They did improve somewhat on the hub world. It makes it a little more open. You can kind of run around and play around, but ultimately it's still just the line you're following. It was definitely more interesting, though, and even offering diverging paths, that was nice, but again, ultimately they go right back together. It made it slightly more immersive. The choice and abilities of the 4 different main characters was a welcome sight. I thought it was something that worked well all the way back in Super Mario Bros. 2, and I'm glad they brought it back. Yes, I said it. You had Super Mario Bros. 2 for the NES. I think character selection should be something that all Mario games should have going forward, but that's an argument for a different day. I wish they would do more of it, but, here we are. Adding in Rosalina in the middle of the game was a nice bonus. The main game has a ton of content, and when you factor in the extra achievements you can get by replaying each of the levels with each of the 5 characters to get the top of the flagpole, it makes it kind of interesting. I thought replaying each level 5 times was a bit overboard for me, for my taste in games, and something that I skipped. But completionists may love that one, especially considering they all have slightly different abilities. So maybe completionists see that as a challenge. The bonus worlds were all cool with increasing difficulty for those hardcore players. There's something for everyone here. What really separated 3D World from 3D Land was in the remake. They added Bowser's Fury. My God, I absolutely love this add-on. All games should include an add-on like this when you re-release a game. Bowser's actually kind of scary looking in this one, where as he ends up looking a bit goofy in other installments. He goes full Godzilla mode here, and when he does pop off, it's fun to be running and hiding from him, from his wrath, until you can get the large cat bell to fight him on his level. The add-on was original while still paying homage to games of the past. It included certain visuals from Sunshine, with the goop being everywhere, definitely reminiscent of that without the annoying mechanics. The towers and areas being unlocked based on the amount of cat shines made sense. The fact that everything is a cat version ties in perfectly with the 3D World main game and is a fun thing to keep your eye out for as you discover more of the game here. Each bad guy you encounter, oh, what does he look like as a cat? Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. I love that the game isn't simply rescuing the princess either. There is some thought here. Bowser is tired of losing and he's lost his ever-living mind and he just wants to destroy everything. Even Bowser Jr. is like, hey, we got to do something here. The goop did remind me a bit of the Venom symbiote, which isn't a bad thing necessarily. It is a 2.5D at certain points, but it's barely noticeable. It's mostly fine. And for the most part, you can face Mario in the camera wherever you like. All pluses for me. The only downsides are that this add-on is too short, and each section is pretty much identical in appearance and feel. They put everything in one giant, super big world. So you really can't do much with the sky. The water is still the water. There's no ice world, there's no fire world, there's no desert world. It's all one big, water world, basically. So that's that one. Number 5, Super Mario Sunshine for the GameCube. Okay, so from here on out, we get all fully fledged out 3D games. No room for debate on any of these are 3D. No 2.5D nonsense, which is great. And that's also why Sunshine does rank above the other two. But for Super Mario Sunshine, I realize it's a game that a lot of people didn't enjoy, and I assume some folks just threw something at their TV, seeing how high on the list this is. Or radio, or wherever you're listening to this. Maybe your phone. Maybe through your phone. I don't know. But pick it up, listen to the rest, please. The mechanics are definitely significantly different from anything Mario has done before or since. The water cannon, nicknamed Flood, get it, ha ha ha, works in place of the various suits or flowers you may find on your journey. They would work, except in some instances you need to completely exit the area you're in, go back to the hub world, change out the nozzle for what you really need, and restart the area. It could be annoying. I feel like if you need the nozzle, there should be an option to get it in that level. Always, 100% of the time. Not some of the time, and then other times you have to exit. That's just how I feel. You get halfway through the section, and then you just go, oh, great, this was all a waste of time. That's one thing you can't do to a player, is make them feel like they wasted the last 20, 30 minutes trying to grind a level just to realize, oh, wait, I have to start completely over from scratch. Sunshine is widely regarded as being Mario's hardest 3D game, which is both good and bad. Some parts just get annoyingly difficult. Certain shines that require Yoshi are absolutely ridiculous, and all Yoshi colors have a clock as to how long you can use them, which is really a departure from other installments, where, you get Yoshi until you get hit, or, that's usually what it is. You usually get hit, and then Yoshi runs around like crazy. The blue coins being in seemingly random places and no way to track them at any point is beyond challenging and goes into the impossible without a guide or some kind of real collaboration. Completionists have to hate this one. They just have to. There's just no way. Again, no rhyme or reason. Kind of reminds me of the Korok seeds, except for somehow I think the blue coins are worse. Okay, so that's the bad. the good is that there is some realistic sort of story here. Mario, Peach, and company want to go on vacation. They need it after everything that has transpired to this point in their lives, frankly. They're up in a plane, and then something happens, and they crash on a tropical island. It's an island in chaos, as there's this Mario imposter, coincidentally, running around, gooping everything up. Mario gets arrested and is only released upon the condition he clean up the imposter's mess with FUD. Okay, that sounds kind of like a story, actually. Not bad for a Mario game. But they get about halfway through the game and Nintendo pulls the rug out from under you and they reveal that Bowser Jr. is the imposter in disguise and he captures Peach. Come on, guys, you were almost there. You almost got away from the damsel in distress trope and you still went for it. I did like the immersion that they implemented. As you collect the shines, the island gets brighter. You can actually see other worlds in the distance when you're going towards them. That was cool. It made everything feel more connected. The downside to that, of course, is that many of the worlds were difficult to distinguish visually. You're just on a beach a lot of the time. But the game still did a good job in certain parts, like Peanut Park, as it was a water/amusement park, and Pianta Village, with the underbelly being so different from anything else you saw to that point. And it was something unique, which you should always do. Always make your levels unique. Don't make them identical to the last one. Plus, you go into the volcano for the final level, so that works. You know, it kind of goes along with the final level always having to be a castle. And there's lava everywhere, so of course, it's only natural you go into a volcano. Some of the villains were quite interesting, like Petey Piranha and Gooper Blooper, making multiple appearances. The Manta Storm had to be my favorite. A 3D hero fighting a 2D villain should be easy, you would think, except that it's not. It was quite challenging, and you had to have some sort of strategy in this fight, or it wasn't going to work. Cleaning the teeth of Ely Mouth was a fun one as well. Really, all the boss fights were pretty strong in this game. They were interesting and decent difficulty. However, the final boss fight involves Bowser and Bowser Jr. in a hot tub. No one hacked my script. That's a thing that for some reason happened in a Nintendo game. The fight itself was decently difficult, but man, did it look silly. Really, if you cleaned up a few things about this game, it could have been higher on the list. And that's why it ranks so high. If you delayed the game by 6 months early on, I feel like you could have corrected and perfected some of the nagging issues that so many gamers complained about with this game. You added a couple of things. You maybe make a blue coin guide with some kind of hints. Maybe, completionists wouldn't get so crazy on this game. And putting the nozzles in each level. That was a big one. And then maybe making the mechanics a little smoother. That would be it. But there were certain things like some of the sub worlds that you went into. Those reminded me a lot of Galaxy. So I think they definitely pulled some of the good out of this game to apply it towards Galaxy. Some of the appearances anyway. So so it's not all bad here. Speaking of Galaxy, number 4 on the list, Super Mario Galaxy 2 for the Wii. Man, I love the Galaxy games. Both were absolutely excellent in terms of gameplay. They utilized the unique controls of the Wii very well, but didn't beat you over the head with them. Adding Yoshi from the first game to the second game was a welcome addition. He was definitely missed in Galaxy 1 and Mario 64, and as stated, he was kind of misused in Sunshine by putting a clock on him and giving him different, color puke abilities. Here we get back to Yoshi 101 and even introduce some new Yoshi mechanics that make this one quite fun. Again, they use the Wii controls pretty good. The worlds are generally fun and interesting in a lot of ways, more than the original. Thwomp's Fortress Galaxy, I think they call it, I forget what they called it. Anyway, that was fun. I'm a sucker for N64 nostalgia. It's just the age bracket I'm in. I just hit 40. I was 13, 14 when I played Mario 64. So anything N64 related gives me a bit of nostalgia there. So that's cool. I liked Luigi's use here as opposed to being an add-on at the end of the first one. It made it into a bit of a joke, frankly. Graphics are peak Mario, and you can't ask for better. They do stand up considering where Nintendo has gone in more recent years. Replayability is good as they have so many varied galaxies to visit. Luigi being an optional player pretty much throughout is good. The game is reasonably difficult without it being bang your head against the wall hard. Galaxy 2 loses points for downgrading on the hub world this time. It's still a spaceship, but it's simplified, and you just kind of run around, along the straight dotted line that sometimes deviates and gives you a different path, but ultimately brings you right back to the main path again when you finish and go to the next world. Bosses were decent, but few weren't overly memorable. There were only few that were overly memorable. Galaxy 1 does a better job in this department, in my opinion. The mechanics are largely the same, and if not for the addition of Yoshi into the game, this one would have slid a bit on the list for being too much like the first one. The story was a bit less in terms of depth, but again, not too major of an issue considering most Mario games just don't have much in terms of a storyline. If Mario Galaxy hadn't existed and Mario Galaxy was what we got instead, this game would be higher on the list. Obviously not the fault of the creators, but this game builds off of number one, and as a result, we should give more credit to the thing that you build off of as opposed to, giving credit to the one who just copied it and then added a little bit. They did a lot really well in this game, and even the low points just aren't that low. The biggest sin is that they didn't do number 3. Like, why? You improved off of the first one, and people loved everything you did there. Why stop? Instead, the next Mario installment on a major console reverts back to 2D space. It's so frustrating. As an aside, this is my biggest complaint about Nintendo. They don't give the people what they want. And sometimes they don't even seem to know. Like, you just had 2 really good installments, and then you go, okay, let's completely change things up, and let's make a left turn. And you just ask yourself, why? Why did you do that? It's weird, and despite all of that, they still continue to succeed. I'm still here for it, and I'm still all in on Nintendo, man. Number 3 on the list, Super Mario Odyssey. So the next 3 games really are so close, you can make an argument for any of the 3 of them being number 1, and I wouldn't be mad at you. They really are the cream of the crop in terms of Mario games, in my opinion. Let's start with our most recent installment, Mario Odyssey. First, I love the game. The Cappy hat throwing ability is brilliant, so much fun, and really opens up the game to use so many different abilities without having the game feel weighed down with different hats, flowers, etc. Doing a Cappy Cowger on Bowser on the end was pure joy, and definitely a gasp out loud moment when you realize what was about to happen. The music from top to bottom is just straight fire. I sing Jump Up Superstar to myself sometimes when I'm playing the game. I'll just be going through New Donk City and that level. I just play that level just because it's fun with the song playing in the background. You're just bopping along. It's great. Love it. The nostalgia's on point with some of the 2D sections hidden throughout the game that takes us back to where it all started. Again, beautiful. Love it. It wasn't overdone. Perfect. The bosses were mostly really cool. Many of the worlds have unique takes on familiar setups. For instance, the Sand Kingdom being a desert, and it doesn't fall into the typical Egypt themes with pyramids, and instead focuses on Mayan influence, which is a breath of fresh air, honestly. I know they still have like a little pyramid there, but again, it's not Egyptian, so it's kind of cool. That's what too many games do, unfortunately. The Wooded Kingdom is awesome. Machines in the Forest create something we don't typically see in Mario. Seaside Kingdom creates a cool take on the underwater level while still feeling traditional Mario. Not all the kingdoms are winners. Lake Kingdom feels very closed in, and Luncheon Kingdom for me has the colors are just all wrong. It just looks like a rainbow just threw up on the whole level, frankly. It doesn't... nothing about the lava screams soup to me, but okay, it looks like Pepto-Bismol, but that's just, I mean, again, it's all right. I mean, again, you do it for the gameplay. Mushroom Kingdom brings all the nostalgia back home with the Mario 64 castle with the same music and basic layout inside. They didn't get to into the details there, and you even get to visit the courtyard and bring Yoshi up onto the roof, so that's kind of cool. It's also a little smaller, but that's okay. And finally, Darker Side of the Moon gives those seeking the most difficult of challenges something to chew on. I did do this challenge, although I cheesed the final third. It just got to be too much, unfortunately. It was too much for me. I tapped out. By the way, the kick-out system finally gone in this installment. It's the most recent one, and they finally got rid of it. Awesome. They finally catch up to 1998 technology. It's something that played Sunshine, the Galaxies, Mario 64. The kick-out system is where you get a star or shine, and you get booted from the level, just to kind of reiterate what we said. I wish Nintendo had gotten away from this sooner, but here we are. With 880 unique moons, I can't imagine what it would have felt like to get kicked out of the level 879 times like that. Kudos to them for finally getting rid of it. The game loses just a little bit on replayability. Like we just said, there are 880 unique moons. That's a lot. That's a lot to ask somebody to dive back in. You really have to think about it. You finish all of those, and it's going to be a while before you want to start fresh. But the game does use that to its advantage, as you can make several hundred in the easy category, normal category, expert, and super expert. So you can go and beat the game fairly easily if you just want to go for the minimum number of moons and just finish. It has something for everyone, so you don't need to get them all, except if you want to be a completionist. And again, if you're a completionist and you love Mario, this is the one for you. It's got a lot of different varied moons, and none of them really feel too similar. Well, not many of them feel too similar. The game also loses a bit on appearance. While I don't think it's a bad-looking game, I just don't see the big difference in upgrade between this installment and, let's say, Galaxy. The games come out 10 years apart and should look a little more different than they are. Overall, though, like I said, solid game, and you wouldn't catch me giving you crap for giving it the #1 spot, frankly. All right, number 2, Super Mario 64 on the Nintendo 64. Wait. This can't be right. Surely it's #1, right? Well, guess what? It isn't. When I started writing this podcast episode, I fully expected to be giving this the #1 spot. I assumed it, but when I started breaking it down, I just couldn't do it. We'll get to the reasons why. And of course, there's only 7, so you figured out which one is #1 already. I just started adding everything up, and well, let's get into it. First, Mario 64 earns its place on the list as the first 3D open-world Mario game that resets all the rules for gaming consoles everywhere. Games like Banjo-Kazooie and other 2D platformers completely tore their game down to the basics in order to also make the leap to 3D. Its impact cannot be understated. The 15 worlds the game boasts are fun and mostly unique. I say mostly because we get 2 ice worlds for some reason, which I was confused by at the time when we actually when I got to the second one. Wait, we had this already. The hub world is really cool as we get to unlock different parts of the castle a little at a time. But man, I remember that Christmas putting that cartridge in the console for the first time and just being in awe for the rest of the day. My brothers and I had to take turns, but man, did we still enjoy watching when it wasn't our turn. It was by far the most magical Christmas we had, largely based on this game and this video game system. To sum up, nostalgia is high with this one, very high. Gameplay is excellent, considering they had nothing to compare themselves to prior to launch, which is how it ends up so high on the list. I'm a big proponent of that. If you, when you're ranking a game, you kind of have to compare it to everything that came before it up to that point, and that's just how I compare games. The fact that they were the first and they were still this good speaks volumes. Obviously, replayability is very good. People still play to this game. You check out Twitch, there's always at least a couple hundred people in the Mario 64 category. A lot of times it's speed runs, sometimes it's randomizers, sometimes it's ROM hacks, that kind of thing. But there's still interest in that mode. So, but think about it, though. The last console Mario game we got was Super Mario World. And that's no disrespect to Super Mario World. It's probably the best 2D Mario game. But that's a big jump in 3 to 5 years' time to go from that Super Mario World to Mario 64. The story. Very familiar. Come to the castle to see Peach. Castle has been invaded, and you need to free the stars one by one to free Peach. I almost said free speech. Anyway, you run around Peach's castle, jumping into magical paintings to get to the different worlds, which is kind of cool. It's a great mechanic. The hub world is in itself its own world, as there are hidden stars throughout the castle that you can find. Most of the main cast has been sidelined for this one. No Luigi. Toad just shows up and gives you a star every now and again, and tips and whatnot. Yoshi is an Easter egg, haha. Considering his relationship to eggs. Anyway, they gave you the basics in this one. As an aside, I do remember being disappointed with Yoshi showing up and then not being playable in any way. I thought that would have been something cool. You just ride Yoshi around, and that would have given you a way to, replay some of the levels and see how it impacted things. The Luigi being playable rumors persist to this day, even though it's pretty much been proven that L is not in fact real. He was never intended to be part of he was intended to, but obviously they found the assets, but he was never part of the final product. He was never unlockable, for any game that made it to release. But I replay this game almost yearly. It's still fun. The game is mostly flawless. I say that with underline, maybe in italics, in quotes. The camera issues are really annoying at times. Sometimes the camera spins for no real reason. Sometimes it's locked in a corner, and it just changes the way you play the game. The camera also doesn't know what to do when it breaks line of sight. I'm glad they fixed it in Sunshine by showing you a little shadow of where you are behind the object that's blocking sight. So that is one thing. I'm glad they learned from their lessons. Also, a few glitchy parts, like when you almost land on a ledge and the game can't decide if you landed or not, so you get this stutter land thing and the camera jerks all over the place. The backwards long jump creates for some interesting glitching where you can skip most of the game if you do it right. I was disappointed when Nintendo patched only that out of the game when they did 3D All-Stars. Kind of annoying. Again, I will take this opportunity to gripe about Nintendo. We've been asking for a remaster of Mario 64 for almost 3 decades. The one for the 3DS doesn't count since you changed the game so radically. We waited forever. You finally broke down. You gave it to us, and it's just a port to the Switch with only one patch, which is to limit the cheese. I often wonder if you even like your fans. I really have to say that out loud. Anyway, Mario 64... it's the OG of 3D Mario, and I just couldn't drop it below number 2. I also couldn't give it the number 1 spot. There are certain times where the game feels repetitive. 3 Bowser fights that are basically identical, showing us Yoshi for exactly one scene, just to have him jump away and never to be found again. The 2 snow worlds I talked about for some reason, and you decide to hide one of them in a mirror room, which I thought that could have been... there was so much more potential there. You jump into a mirror and it was a mirror-based world. You could have done something cool there. But instead it's another ice world. Okay, fun, I guess. The game's graphics sure don't hold up. And some of the mechanics, like entering TikTok clock, are not ever really explained. So you kind of have to figure out some of these mechanics. Sometimes it works out. Like Wet Dry World. That one was kind of easy to figure out after a while. Like, oh, okay, I jumped in at the top and everything's at the top. So, but TikTok clock was a little more difficult to figure out. But anyway, so that's number 2. So number 1 is, you figured it out by now, Super Mario Galaxy. Mario Galaxy got the edge on its sequel because it lays the groundwork so expertly. The game is so creative in the mechanics that even Nintendo couldn't ignore the potential for a sequel. It's one of only 2 3D games to even get a sequel, and the other one was for a portable console. So that, I feel like that makes a difference. The game takes 3D to the next level by giving you different galaxies and planets to walk around. Some are tiny and clearly don't obey the laws of physics, but hey, it's Mario. You kind of have to, that comes with the territory. He rarely obeys the laws of physics. The game immediately hits you with the cool new physics in running upside down and around different planets, making for an interesting experience. Galaxy 1 and 2 definitely have the most unique mechanics of any of the games listed here. The camera issues are mostly solved here. I don't remember there being too many instances where I didn't know where I was. There were some great references to other games. Luigi being caught in a ghost house, of course, referencing the Luigi's Mansion franchise, and including Captain Toad, which helps launch the Captain Toad games years later, because he becomes a recurring theme. That was kind of cool. The boss fights in the various galaxies are pretty fun. A lot of new interesting ones. Dino Piranha is technically new, although I got a very PD Piranha vibe from him. Mega Leg was very cool when you fight Baby Bowser for the first time. Boy, I'm glad at least the 3 Baby Bowser fights were unique each time. And Bouldergeist. Bouldergeist was great. Definitely a unique mixing rocks and a rock type and a ghost type. That you don't get that a lot. There are others, but the point I make is that they're definitely a strong point of the game. The Prankster comments give you a chance to replay some of the sections with an extra challenge, and they vary up the mechanics each time, which is nice. It isn't always beat the level with only 1 hit point or speed run this one. You know, they vary it each time, so that's very good. The stakes feel bigger as this game, as you are fighting to ensure Bowser doesn't gain galactic dominance, and you even see the birth of a new galaxy at the end of the game. So it's not just about rescuing Princess Peach, although obviously that's how they kick things off, and that's usually Mario's motivation. The hub world is cool. It harkens back to Mario 64 without being an exact copy. I do like that some of the sections you can technically get to before you're supposed to. It's just dark, and you can't really do much there. You can just kind of run around. This game took all the right lessons from Mario 64 while avoiding some of the pitfalls of Sunshine. Also, there are 42 separate galaxies. Compare that with the 15 from Mario 64, and you can see why you never get bored or sick of any particular galaxy. You just aren't there long enough to. To me, that's a plus. 7 stars in each world in 64 made it feel grueling, especially if you got stuck on 1 or 2 stars and were going for a 100% speed run. The game definitely has great replayability because of this, because you don't really spend a lot of time there in each world. But like everything else on the list, it had some negatives. Even though they did add Luigi after you beat the game, it does create for a few weird instances where Luigi encounters himself. The weird part is they changed the dialogue in those instances to address the weirdness, even though I've taken just a bit more effort to just insert Mario into those spots and make more sense. Just swap roles. Mario's the one getting captured all the time. Okay, fine, done. Even though this is somewhat of a negative, it's still a nice callback to when you finish Super Mario Bros. 1 and they make you replay the game, which then has a greater difficulty. The fights with Bowser are fairly similar, although still pretty fun. At least the difficulty does ramp up each time you encounter him. The kick-out system is still in play, which is pretty consistent on this list with the exception of Odyssey, as we said. Many times they take you onto a completely different section of the level, so can it even still be technically the same level? That's a question. The only thing connecting certain stars is the theme. Like the Toy Galaxy. You get on that little train there, and then they just shoot you off into 2 or 3 different sections of the level, and none really have anything to do with each other. And although I still had to give it the #1 spot, the graphics are great and still hold up when compared to modern Mario games. Just played it the other day, actually. Fantastic. Love it. The mechanics, as stated, are superb. It makes great use of the motion controls while not being obnoxious about it. The flying into each level never gets old. Sometimes you get to circle the level before landing, giving you a chance to kind of scope things out before attacking the level. And, if you wave the star over the screen, you can collect some star bits early on and get, 20 to 30 bits before you've even landed, which is kind of cool. He feels the most like a Super Mario in this one to me, because of all the flying around and the different abilities he has. It's almost like he possesses superpowers. I love replaying this one every once in a while, and isn't that what it's all about? Having fun? All right, so in conclusion, so that's my list. I do just want to take this opportunity to reiterate that I enjoyed all the games on the list to varying degrees, obviously. All had their issues, but ultimately were super enjoyable. The shocking thing to me is that we've only had 7 of these since 1996. That's 27 years, guys. For a game franchise as influential and easily recognizable as Super Mario, you would think that we would have gotten more. We wait patiently for a Mario Odyssey sequel. However, I just don't see it happening on the Switch. I think given Switch's age at this point, the best thing you can hope for is that it will be on the Switch successor, whatever that ends up looking like. There are, of course, rumors that Tears of the Kingdom will be the last major release on the Switch, so look for an announcement in the later part of this year and into next year on a new console, and then later on what the Odyssey successor will be. If the next Mario game is on the next gen, I do think they will change up the mechanics. It's just tough Nintendo never leaves their controllers alone, so it's going to be tough to whatever the next generation of controller looks like for them, it's going to be different. I think that's a sure bet, and it's going to be tough to get Mario Odyssey mechanics to work on that. I'll miss Cappy. He was a delight. If we're getting a new console soon, I hope they keep the mechanic of being able to have the next console be handheld or docked. I thought that was very cool for Nintendo. But anyways, what do you guys think? Share your own rankings down below. Make sure to like, subscribe, all the good stuff. Come find me on TikTok, YouTube, wherever podcasts are available, and of course on Twitch playing Mario Maker 3 times a week. Thank you so much for listening to this point. My name is Jim. I have been your pal for today. This is the Jim Pal Podcast. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.